Hey people, short disclaimer, I might have mispronounced some words in this video, but I only realized that after I recorded and edited everything, so I hope it won't be much trouble, and I hope you still enjoy the video. Hey people from all over the world, it's me, Alsha, and welcome back to my second ever video on this channel. Today, me and my assistant Bob are going to tell you guys why Wuthering Heights is one of my favorite books of all time, next to The Pianist and The Kreuz Sonata, and why I would recommend it to everyone who likes books and has a slight understanding of literature. So this time I will put timestamps in the description, so anyone who doesn't want to know what the story is about or doesn't want to hear any specifics on why I like the book, you can just skip a section and then just continue watching. I think that will make it easier. To start off, I'm going to tell you a bit about the book itself and its main plot. So, Wuthering Heights was written by Emily Bronte and published in 1847 under the name Alice Bell. I think that's how you say it. During that time, not many people were too fond of the book, but today it's one of the best known novels of the 19th century when it comes to English literature. I think it can be described as a gothic fiction dealing with dramatic love and revenge, and I personally think it's one of the best depiction of toxic relationships out there. Like, no joke, if you love your toxic love stories, put away your teenage fanfiction novels and turn your attention to something that might even educate you. Just an idea, I don't know. So now you might ask yourself what this book is all about, and because I'm like a really nice person, I will tell you. So basically the story is all about the complete and utterly destructive relationship between the lady Catherine Earnshaw, who's also called Kathy sometimes, and the former orphan Heathcliff. And the whole story takes place at the two properties of the two families that I'm going to mention, Wuthering Heights and Thrushcross Grange, which is the biggest tongue twister ever, in the Yorkshire Moors. So the story starts with the gentleman, Mr. Lockwood, arriving at Wuthering Heights, like the manor of his new landlord, Heathcliff, to probably introduce himself because he leases Thrushcross Grange, right? So within the first minutes of his arrival, Mr. Lockwood meets his very rude landlord, a rather stupid appearing guy, an old religious fanatic, and an angry young lady. And all of them share two specific character trademarks. They all appear to hate each other to a certain extent, and they all don't want Mr. Lockwood to be at Wuthering Heights. So after an unwillingly long stay at the manor, strange nightmares, and a mental breakdown from Heathcliff, Mr. Lockwood leaves Wuthering Heights and returns to his own new home, where he meets a maid named Nellie, who just happens to work at Wuthering Heights, and that's the reason why she knows everyone over there and why they're acting like complete lunatics. I mean, Mr. Lockwood didn't phrase it that way, but I think at least a part of him thought it. That's just a guess, I don't know. So 90% of the actual story is being told from the third-person perspective of Nellie, who tells Mr. Lockwood the story of Heathcliff and how he turned out the way he is right now. But what happened is, the father of Catherine and her brother Hindley brings home an orphanage from Liverpool and just decides to adopt him, whatever reason, because he feels sorry for him. He gives him the name Heathcliff and treats him like his own son. And some might argue that he even treats them better, like his own children. Catherine and Heathcliff become very close over time, and Hindley starts to hate Heathcliff more and more. And don't get me wrong, like, Heathcliff isn't an angel or anything. He is prideful, determined, and cunning, even at a young age, and doesn't really care about anything else than Catherine. So Hindley has a point. sometimes. After some time passes, Hindley and Catherine's father just dies because he's old. And Hindley gets Wuthering Heights, as it was back then, and starts to unleash his full hate on Heathcliff the second he got the opportunity to. But that actually doesn't stop Heathcliff or Catherine from wandering off to the moor and doing whatever they want, basically, which leads to Catherine staying at the Lintons' house, who own Thrushcross Grange, for about 5 weeks, where she is supposed to be turned into a lady, because she isn't one. After that time, she needs to find herself a good husband, as it was at that time, and at that point enters the nice and good-looking Edgar Linton, or Linton, I think, yeah, Linton, who after a while of hanging out with her just proposes to her because she's like a nice lady and they need to marry. So you can imagine that the proud and possessive Heathcliff isn't too fond of the idea of Catherine marrying Linton, and Catherine needs to decide between the two men. The one she actually loves and whom she sees as her soulmate, or the good-looking dude who is good marriage material from her point of view. And she goes off saying something like, "Oh, I love Heathcliff, but Linton is so handsome, and I would be rich, but I can't leave Heathcliff, like, blah, 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 whatever. In the end, she chooses to marry Linton, surprise. Heathcliff hears that and just leaves, disappears forever. No, he doesn't disappear forever, but for a long time, and nobody really knows if he's dead or alive or what he's doing, but they just go on with their life. In the time of his absence, Hindley, the brother, becomes an alcoholic after his wife died, giving birth to son Harthan. Catherine marries Linton, and they get a daughter named Catherine, which is so creative. The old Catherine becomes like really sick. It isn't really stated what she gets, but it causes fever dreams and madness and stuff, so it isn't fun. And Nellie just works at Thrushcross Grange now because she got kicked out of Wuthering Heights. So after all of that, Heathcliff comes back and he just does the greatest thing in my opinion. I think it's just hilarious, but maybe that's just me and my dark humor. So he comes back after 3 years to get revenge and systematically takes over everything the Earnshaws and the Lintons have. Like, he acquired wealth during his absence, which is why Hindley invites him back into the house. He makes Harthan like him more than his own father, which isn't hard considering he's a violent drunk. He charms Linton's sister Isabella into marrying him. They both have a son who's called Linton, which I don't know why they decided to call him that, but it is the funniest thing in the world to me that his son has the same name as the man he despises. I don't know if you think that's funny, but I think it is, and that's just instant karma. So he also declares his love for Cathy in like very cruel ways. He manipulates Catherine Linton into marrying his very sick and fragile son, who he also hates because he's so weak. And after his son dies, he gets Thrushcross Grange, which he then leases off to Mr. Lockwood, who then visits them, and then we're back at the beginning. So I know the description is kind of lacking important plot points and stuff, but I purposely did that because I don't want to spoil people too much on a 174-year-old book. That's just not my style. Now we know all the basic information of the book, I can tell you the points of why I would recommend this book to anyone who likes to read, even if they're not particularly into love or toxic love stories. My favorite thing about the book is the way the characters are written. I don't know about you guys, but I'm a character person. The better a character is portrayed, the more I can care for it, the more I relate to it, and the more I can hate it, for that matter. So in this book, there's not one character that you don't get to hate for at least a while during the time you read the book. You have the evil plotting Heathcliff, the egotistical and self-centered love Cathy, the husband who cannot stand up for himself for anything in his life, the stupid sister who doesn't listen to her brother and lets herself get persuaded by Heathcliff, the always whining son, Linton, the stubborn Catherine, who cannot handle the consequences of her actions, the violent drunk Hindley, the uneducated and angry son Harthan, the annoying religious dude Joseph, the noisy biased Nellie, and Mr. Lockwood just comes off as just mental to me. I don't know. Well, you can see everyone has their bad sides, which makes you hate them, but this is one big factor why I really think they're fantastic characters. No good character is just nice or just good or has no flaws whatsoever. I mean, have you ever seen a really nice or charming guy and girl in a movie and a show that gets along with everyone and doesn't have problems at all? Well, there is a 85% chance that they're sociopathic serial killers. Perfect people are just terrifying. Or am I the only one who thinks Hannibal Lecter is creepy to this extent because he comes off as like a nice and intellectual dude? I bet I'm not. I mean, this is not the only reason why I think he's scary. The fact that he's a cannibal weirds me out too, but his character traits just make him extra creepy. I don't know. So you see, good characters have flaws, and the ones in Wuthering Heights definitely have a lot of them. But it's not only the flaws that make the character experience as great as it is the way Emily Bronte portrays them with her way of writing. So within a couple pages, she can make you go from I hate you so much to I feel really bad for you real quick, which I think is amazing. And I'm going to give you an example for that. So this is something the anti-hero / antagonist Heathcliff says to the sickened Catherine. He says, "You teach me now how cruel you've been, cruel and false. Why did you despise me? Why did you betray your own heart, Cathy? I've not one word of comfort. You deserve this. You have killed yourself." While I read this scene, I was pretty torn on whether to be on his or her side, but it was pretty cruel of him and made me hate him in that situation. But one chapter later, he just says something like, "Be with me always. Take any form. Drive me mad. Only do not leave me in this abyss where I cannot find you. It is unutterable. I cannot live without my life. I cannot live without my soul." So he basically did a 180 between chapter 15 and 16, and stuff like this happens a lot. Mostly when it comes to the main characters, but the other characters get to shine as well. It makes them relatable, and it really shows that emotions don't fade over time and that emotions are an important factor of what it means to be human. I don't know why, but it seems poetic to me in a way. And the poetry of these kind of books is the second reason why I would recommend it to everyone. So I, as a reader, have a very specific taste in what types of books I usually enjoy reading. The two types of genres I usually prefer are manga and books that are considered classics. So the reason why I prefer these type of genres is because they tell stories with actually saying something, if that makes sense. I mean, if you look at most books from our time, they don't find a good way of expressing themselves. I don't know. I'm just going to give you guys some examples from toxic love stories from the present century and compare them to quotes from Wuthering Heights. So we have a quote from Twilight and two quotes from the After series. And to clarify, I haven't read Twilight, but I have read After, and let's just say I didn't actually buy paper copies of this series because I only do that with books that deserve to be inside of my shelf. I don't know. So the Twilight quote is, "No one has ever loved anyone as much as I love you," which is pretty bland if you ask me. On the other side, the Wuthering Heights quote is one from Catherine, and it says, "I'm Heathcliff. He's always in my mind. Not as pleasure any more than I'm always a pleasure to myself, but as my own being." Is it now clearer why I think present time novels tell stories without actually saying anything? I don't know. I'll give you the second examples. So let's check out the After ones. because they do something which kinda really make me mad. So Anna Todd, the author, claims to be a big literature fan, which is why the characters love literature and stuff. And I don't care if that's true or not. I mean, why would anyone lie about that? But what she did is she messed up important quotes from this book and let her characters say them to give them more literature vibes or whatever. I don't know. So what we have is, I love you too. Don't say too. It sounds like you're just agreeing with me. And the second one is, whatever the our souls are made of, her and mine are the same. I don't know why, but I get the feeling I've heard something similar before. Anyway, these are the Wuthering Heights quotes. Whatever our souls are made of, his and mine are the same. Oh my god, that's why it sounded so familiar. My god, because Anna Todd just took a poetic quote out of a classic, put profanities in it, and used it to give her own story more depth. I don't know if you've noticed, but I really get worked up about stuff like this. I don't have anything against cuss words in general. I just hate it when people don't come up with their own ideas and then take something awesome and remake it into something horrific. That's also why I'm usually anti-remake when it comes to movies and TV shows. So to sum it up, I hope everyone gets my point now, why old books tend to say something when a story gets told, because it is really hard to explain for me otherwise. So these are the two main reasons why I think anyone should read this book, but if you're still not convinced, I can tell you some other topic that this book deals with, besides the already stated ones, like love and passion, as well as revenge. There are a couple more things this book touches upon. It is full of supernatural elements, which fits the gothic fiction genre perfectly. It also deals with the topic of masculinity and femininity, examines stereotypical gender roles from the 19th century, and puts you into perspective when it comes to social hierarchy and class during that time period. And you can draw parallels to our current time with every topic this book touches upon, which amazes me, but also makes me lose faith in mankind at the same time. Now I've told you guys why I recommend this book to everyone who likes to read, and I hope you might pick it up sometimes. I also wanted to say that I really enjoyed making this video, and the last one of course, and the ones that come in the future, and that's why I want this channel to grow a bit more so people can watch my videos, so more people can watch my videos. So I'd like to ask you to like the video and to subscribe if you haven't, because that would mean the world to me. Serious. Really, that would be great. Thanks. And I mean that. So also please share it with your friends or whatever, because that's how it gets spreaded. So that would really help me out. I also want to thank my wonderful assistant Bob for not only embracing his inner gentleman today, but also his inner crossdresser, because I simply cannot afford another drawn assistant. I'm poor, you know. So anyway, thanks for watching and see you next time.